Like I said, I'll show you someday. Hey, you're trying to get me to stay here? Why don't you come to my house? I could show you a whole lot of things. No, not like that. I'm gonna show him stuff like Mario Kart and Pokemon. Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. I am Espoir du Vide. Guess what? Day 3 of Mushroom Oasis has been released. If you're unfamiliar with this game, I've already played it a couple of times, and there are links in the description as well as, hopefully, on the screen of my last playthroughs. But as a very quick recap, your cat has gone missing in the forest, and getting lost yourself in the forest, you stumble upon a cute man living there. As it turns out, he's kinda monstery, but still very cute. And he seems to have a very unique way of persuading you not to leave. Also, if you enjoy this video, please consider subscribing, because we're trying to make it to 100,000 subscribers. So this is a little bit before Day 3 happens, when we're having a very nice time out in the woods, but then you tell Sweet Michael that, hey, I gotta go. I still gotta find my cat. But unfortunately, our cat has already, Daisy's not around no more. An awkward silence passed between the two of us. Anyways, I caught him mumbling under his breath. I can't let you leave. What? I said, you can't leave. I mean, not without your cat, right? I frowned. I've already tried, Michael. Like you said, it was stupid for me to just wander off into the woods as if I'd find her through dumb luck. He paused, his fists clenching. But I haven't. Huh? I haven't tried. I know these woods better than anyone. I can try looking for her. But that means you can't leave yet. Michael, I appreciate the offer, but I don't think I should stick around any longer. I have a job and responsibilities and... You hissed in pain, a sudden migraine overcoming your senses. You felt sick, your stomach wringing itself into knots. It felt like the world was warping around you as your legs wobbled. Your body buckled over as you resisted the urge to vomit. Ah! Michael caught you as you slumped gracelessly to the ground, your head resting on his shoulder as he cradled you close. Hey, you don't look so good. Your vision doubled as he spoke, his speech oozing together, words into an indecipherable mess. Are you okay? Do you need me to carry you home? Yes, please. Yes, please. Yes, please. Or yes, please. Yeah, sure. Okay, no problem. Just hang in there. Hang on to me. Why you gotta manipulate me like this, Michael? I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. You don't deserve this. If I could just one more day with you, I'd be the happiest man alive. Here we are. Let's get you tucked in. I should give you some clothes, especially since you'll be staying another night. You're okay with that, aren't you? I blinked, groggily awake to the gentle sounds of a crackling fire, the itchy texture of worn bedsheets, the weight of a heavy knit blanket. I could recall once or twice having felt these very sensations, to the point I'd consider them familiar and comforting. And yet... Is he purring? Is he purring? Does he purr? Aww. Nothing could prepare me for the bright yellow eyes peering into mine. Wah! Truth be told, I'd do the same thing. Did I deck him in the face? My knuckles hit him square in the face as Michael yelped, nose scrunching as the taller man stumbled backwards into a stool. He landed on his rear with the grace of a clumsy toddler on the floor. I sat up in a panic and immediately grimaced, landing back on the bed with an unceremonious flop. Or is that the sound of something bubbling and not him purring? It hit me in one fell swoop how my whole body was aching. Every single one of my limbs felt like they'd gone through a wringer and came out the other side all crinkled and wrong. I groaned aloud, leaning my head back on the pillow. "Aw, well, sorry, dude." Michael shifted back onto his feet, rubbing his nose. "Spawn." His voice was an awkward croak before he cleared his throat. "I'm glad you're awake. How are you feeling?" Terrible." He visibly flinched. I'm sorry to hear that." He stepped closer to the bed, leaning over warily in case my hand dramatically whipped out again in self-defense. With my hand settled on my lap, he deemed it safe enough to sit beside me. What happened, Michael?" "Yeah, Michael. What happened?" You don't remember?" I shook my head, wincing a bit as my head pounded. "Not at all." Michael hesitated. "You, tripped and hit your head. I had to carry you home?" His words almost slurred together as he fidgeted. "My head?" I slowly lifted my hand to feel for bumps or bruises, but he hastily snatched my wrist. "Don't worry about that. Here, have this. It'll help." Michael gave me a familiar-looking drink as he quickly pressed a cup into my hands. Sitting up with some effort to take a sip, I couldn't help the small sense of déjà vu. Yeah. The amount of times I woke up in his bed dazed and disoriented is almost uncomfortable now. At least the drink was helping, just like he had promised. My body felt lighter as I finished. Michael, is that some stay-here-forever juice you're giving me?" Michael took the cup from me and set it aside before wringing his hands together with a nervousness I hadn't seen in a while. "So, I'm sorry this happened. I didn't mean for you to get hurt." I sighed and waved aside his worry with an embarrassed grumble. "Wouldn't be the first time I tripped, if you could believe it. It's not your fault." "It's totally his fault." He gave a soft chuckle, but it sounded guilty. I suppose you're right. It's just..." His face looked like he had a million thoughts running through his head. "I promised, didn't I? I said I was going to look out for you. I said I was going to keep you safe. Instead, I made you hurt." His voice cracked. I'm so sorry, Espoir." The sudden change in demeanor was starting to say the least. "You couldn't have predicted it was going to happen. And I feel fine. See?" "Oh, Firefly. I guess you're right." His expression carried a lingering doubt, but he quickly masked it with a small smile, his eyes dim. "In that case, you'll be staying?" The way he said it almost sounded like a decision that's already been made. Or a plea. "What do you mean?" His eyes darted aside. "You agreed to let me find Daisy, remember?" Did I say that?" "Yeah. So, you'll be staying a while longer, right?" He didn't even let me get a word in. In fact, a feeling of uncertainty washed over me, as if we've had this conversation before. "Michael, why is there ominous music playing? You wouldn't happen to be lying to me, would you?" "I don't think. Besides, what's the rush? It's already late and you're in no condition to travel anyway." I blinked before glancing out the window. Pitch-black darkness greeted me as I realized he was right. Yet another uncanny feeling spread through my chest, shivers crawling down my spine. Michael! I don't know why, but something about this whole situation felt wrong. I feel like I'm forgetting something else. Michael had a nervous look on his face. Maybe you hit your head harder than you thought. His words didn't sound confident. How long was I out? A couple hours, I think. You, really took a hit. It was that bad? My brows creased as I tried to recall today's events. But I don't remember tripping. There was a river. I remember you. And then... Your memory must be fuzzy, and for good reason. After all, it's been... My stomach rumbled suddenly, echoing in the quiet room. Everybody shut up, I'm hungry. There was a heavy silence right after. Michael was polite enough to hide his chuckle under a palm as I flushed. He seemed relieved. Well, lucky for you, I've got dinner on the way. It should be ready soon. You're okay with soup, right? Soup? Soup sounds all right. My stomach growled once more, the pain of an empty gut making me wince a bit. My host noticed immediately. Oh, maybe we should get you some food sooner than later. Do you feel okay enough to get up? I nodded with a grumble, swinging my legs over the side of the bed before noticing something was on my lap. Wait, what's this? Oh, it's got little mushrooms on it. Oh. I unbundled the pile of thick fabric, realizing it was an oversized sweater with a pair of baggy sweatpants. A mushroom pattern? That's oddly cute. That's very cute. The material felt worn, but comfortable. A towel laid right next to them. Is this for me? Oh, I figured since you'll be staying another night, you'd want some fresh clothes. They might be a few sizes bigger. Or a lot. Sorry. He'd gotten shy for some reason. On the other hand, I didn't have to take a whiff at myself to know that I probably reek. I nodded again, giving him a small but grateful smile. They're fine, Michael. Thank you. Yet another thing I had to owe him. I couldn't help feeling like I'm taking advantage of his kindness now. So, you know where the bathroom is? Take your time cleaning up. I'll be in the kitchen if you need anything. I'm really happy you're here. He stood there for a good few seconds, fidgeting with his hands as if he wanted to say more, before finally heading to the kitchen. I watched his back retreat before hoisting myself up and heading to the bathroom. Now that I was alone, I had a moment to gather my thoughts. The nagging feeling was back, a prickling feeling across my skin, raising goosebumps as if to tell me I shouldn't be here. Better not be the mushrooms. I just couldn't place my finger on what. I should be careful? I was just probably being paranoid. Yeah, it's probably fine. It's probably all fine. I'm just being paranoid. There's nothing wrong here. I'm totally not being gaslit by purple gas. Then again, it's been a while since I've showered, so I could chalk it up to dirt accumulating on me and making me itch in places I didn't want to think about. After undressing, I folded my clothes so I could place them in my backpack later, before turning on the shower. The water was ice cold. My teeth chattered as I cleaned myself as fast as I could, using some scentless soap by the side of the tub. Dressing myself again, I wrung out my hair as best as I could before drying it with the towel. Putting on the clothes Michael provided, I felt like I had shrunk in size. I adjusted the sleeves and waistband to my liking, with some struggling, just so my hands and feet could poke out of the holes comfortably. I couldn't help noticing his clothes smelled like freshly cut grass, with a smoky hint of woodsy bonfire. Ooh. The scent reminded me of camping in summer. Persistent doubt aside, I definitely felt way better compared to when I woke up. Stepping outside, I could smell something good coming from the kitchen. A gentle humming greeted me as I came through the doorway. Michael was idly stirring a pot on the stove, looking up at me as I entered the kitchen. Whatever he had in that pot made my stomach grumble yet again. His ears flicked as he registered the clothes I was wearing. How do they fit? I shrugged. They're definitely bigger on me. He nodded, turning back to the pot. I can see that. Hey, wearing clothes that are 4 times bigger than your size is delicious. I wasn't sure what you normally wear, so I went with whatever I had that was... He struggled to pick a word. Coziest? I gave him a hum of agreement, fiddling with the hem of his sweater. Flirt, goof around. Let's goof around first. I fisted the sweater by the sides, flapping it back and forth. It really was so ridiculously baggy on me, I had to spout whatever nonsense that came in my mind before my brain could filter it. Look at all this free yarn real estate. Michael did a whole body freeze, his hands stilling as the pot bubbled merrily. Free real what? Free yarn real estate. Is that supposed to make sense? Because it feels like another one of those things you say just to mess with me. Nah, I don't need to explain myself. He narrowed his eyes. What? You do not sanction my buffoonery? Explain. I genuinely can't. Then why say it in the first place? Hey, I'm just being a goofy goober. You don't need to be mad. By the look on his face, it was clear I was just messing with him. Michael, why does anyone say anything at all? Perhaps it was a spur of the moment, to express themselves with declarations of spontaneous whimsy. Spontaneous whimsy! His expression flickered between confusion, doubt, and maybe even a smidge of grief. Do you make it a habit to talk nonsense all the time? Have you seen my channel, my sweet dear? It's all nonsense. Only sometimes. He turned his focus back on stirring, sighing heavily. I should have left you in the dirt. I gasped. Was that a threat? No. That was a threat. It was not. Jail for Michael. Jail for 1,000 years. His ears flattened against his head in amusement, the tip of his tail flicking in playful irritation. I deserve jail for speaking my truth? Yes, absolutely. He laughed again. You think I'm joking? 1 million years dungeon? You're ridiculous. You know that? Hey, not my fault you can't keep up. I am what I am.
Huh?
Oh boy. Greekin? What did you call me? Is what you are. I blinked. It sounded like he gargled a bag of marbles, pronouncing whatever the heck it was he said. What? His eyes squinted, a triumphant grin mirroring mine just a few seconds ago gracing his face. Oh, are you pulling otherworldly memes on me now? Doesn't feel good, does it? I scoffed, folding my arms as I leaned against the counter. Whatever. I can totally say Greekin. He bursts into laughter. That is not how you say it. Gregikin? That's even worse. Refusing to back down, my hand shot out to poke his side. Surprisingly, he yelped, his hand nearly letting go of the ladle. What was that? Wait a second. Has he never been... I gave another curious poke. Aw, to which he swatted away my hand with a panicked look on his face. Stop that? Are you ticklish? What does that mean? Uh-oh. What did you just do? Oh. Oh. Oh, this is wonderful news. Before I could even consider a strategic frontal assault, the kettle started to whistle. You're safe for now, Michael. Michael turns towards it, clueless as to what would have ensued otherwise. Someday, Michael. Someday. Why don't you take a seat, Firefly? I'll be right with you. He was already turning his back towards me to start preparing the tea. I slowly approached him. Hey, let me help this time. Michael startled, surprised to see me beside him. Oh, sure. Could you get some bowls ready? We're having tomato soup. Ooh. Oh, do you want some grilled cheese with yours, or would you prefer garlic bread? Grilled cheese, please. The food of the meal of the gods. Got it. I brushed past him, feeling his tail linger by my ankle as I grabbed the bowls and spoons from the bottom shelf. He started preparing the sides, the smell of toasted bread filling the kitchen and mingling with the soups. I took over preparing the tea. Finally, I ladled the soup from the pot into a larger bowl, just as Michael finished flipping the last piece. We settled in for a nice hot dinner. Ooh! Regardless of how I felt about tomato soup, Michael's turned out rich and creamy, with an amazing balance of sour and sweet. My mouth is watering. Dipping in the bite-sized grilled cheese sandwiches made it taste like pure savory comfort, crisp and gooey. Even if I've never had it as a kid, it still made me feel nostalgic somehow. There's still a feeling of stilted awkwardness, but the food helped ease us both into a warmer, light-hearted conversation. I didn't realize how hungry I was until I refilled my bowl, Michael watching me with his chin propped in his hand. His bowl sat empty. Apparently, he'd already had his fill. Is tomato soup your favorite? His question was innocent, though his eyes were observing me carefully as I shrugged. I think I'd love anything you cook. He stilled, taking a second to process what I said. Oh, well, thank you. No, thank you. Usually I get takeout or microwave dinners, or the pizza that I'm probably going to order later on today. Nothing beats home-cooked food. What's a microwave? Oh, that's gonna open up a whole world of wonders if Michael had a microwave. I snickered and tried to explain it the best I can. A metal box that heats up food? That sounds like... what's the word in those fantasy books? Magic? Am I using that word right? I laughed lightly. Sometimes science is just like that. We talked about other kitchen appliances off the top of my head, slowly branching out to other human inventions. He seemed even more interested. Come on, Michael, we're gonna go to a thrift shop and get some discount appliances. I never understood how technology worked. I pulled out my phone and let him fiddle with it, though with the battery dead, there's not much I could show. He was clearly disappointed. It's about as useful as a brick. For now. Otherwise, I'd have a whole network of information in my hands. His eyes lit up. Like a library? And you can access it at any time as long as the battery is alive? As long as I have an internet connection. Right. Internet. I didn't know you could do that. I just see people staring at them all the time. It seems boring. He looked at my phone again, a look of wonder on his face. Having a whole library in your hands. Everyone must be really smart then. Well, not everyone uses it like a library, more like a messaging hub. Or a source of content consumption? His ears flicked as he stared at me with a blank smile. Consumption? You can eat it? Yeah, he has no clue what I'm talking about. Poor sweet summer baby. How do I explain to him the very concept of Web 2.0? I cleared my throat, deciding that I simply won't. Maybe I can show you what I mean someday. His eyes brightened, seeming to like that idea a lot. You mean that? I can have some? Yeah, I think it's about time you start getting a little more modern around here. No offense. Imagine what you could do with a generator. His smile widened just a tad, though there's still a cluelessness to his face that was just a little endearing. Oh, generator? I laughed and reached across to pat his hand, a gesture that made his smile wobble. Like I said, I'll show you someday. Hey, you're trying to get me to stay here? Why don't you come to my house? I could show you a whole lot of things. No, not like that. I'm gonna show him stuff like Mario Kart and Pokemon. A loud thwack sounded against the floorboards, followed by a rhythmic thudding. Leaning over, I could see the tip of his tail was wagging back and forth, the tip of it slapping against the floor almost comedically. Michael looked flustered as he laughed softly, pulling his hand back to rub his neck. Sorry. He looked like he had more to say, but exhaled heavily, gathering himself before tilting his chin towards my empty bowl. Are you done? I nodded as he stood and collected our dirty dishes, heading towards the sink to wash them. I followed close behind, carrying the mugs. We made quick work of the dishes, heading back to the living room to relax. Michael headed to his blanket of knitting materials, his movements routine. I wasn't sure what to do with myself. I looked over at Michael as he pulled out the spool from the corner of the room towards the front of the fireplace. His ear flicked in my direction before he returned my glance. Do you knit? No. I'd like to learn, but no. He gave a soft chuckle. Maybe you'll like it if you tried. Can I see what you're working on? He looked surprised, not expecting my interest. Sure. It's just something to work on in my downtime. Halfway through, I started to realize that maybe it's not really my color. He lifted it up for me to see, only for my foot to kick the basket, sending a ball of yarn rolling towards the bed. Ah, sorry. I quickly followed after it, only to halt as I spotted something under the bed. It was glinting off the bright firelight within the room. Ooh. Approaching the bed and tilting my head lower, I could see it was a tin container, the size of a shoebox. What's that? Michael looked up. Under your bed. Is it something important? A hesitant look came across his face. What's in the box, Michael? Oh, just some emergency supplies. Nothing too special. I had an inkling it was something more, but I figured I'd let him keep his privacy without prying anymore. I see. Michael watched me for a moment or two before clearing his throat. Hey, Firefly? I've been meaning to ask. Do you remember what you said at the river? The river? Oh, where I tripped. I pursed my lips in thought. Not really. Everything feels fuzzy to me. He seemed disappointed. Oh, not even a little? I shook my head. Why? Did I say something stupid? Just some things. It made me happy. Oh, God, I think I did say something stupid. Before I could ask about it, he'd already gestured towards the bed. Well, you should get some sleep, Firefly. Want to wake up nice and early to find Daisy, right? The idea of looking for my cat once more made me wilt. You really think we'll find her? Michael looked on edge, pocketing his hands. So does he know that Daisy has been taken by the mushrooms? It doesn't hurt to try, but it does hurt to hope. His face twitched. Well, His ears flattened as he thought of something to say, clearly struggling. He finally opened his mouth to respond, his words slow and careful. I'm here for you. Thank you, Michael. He nodded, a strange mixture of polite happiness and hidden anxiety playing across his face. He's probably not used to another person sticking around this long, let alone someone going through a loss he could care less about. Maybe I've been enough of a burden to him. Actually, can you just send me home? His brows raised, his posture straightening in surprise. Are you sure? But what about Daisy? Don't you want to see if we can find her? I'm sure. A look of apprehension crossed his face. But it's so soon. Daisy could be out there. Michael, please. I can't think about her right now. I just want to go home. He fidgeted with the sleeves of his cardigan. But He looked like he had so much more to say, but whatever turmoil going on in his head was quickly swept behind a reassuring smile. Okay. Get some sleep, Firefly. You've been through a lot. He went to collect his blankets again, already arranging them into a nest like the night before. The words left my mouth before I could think twice. Do you want to use the bed tonight? He stopped in his tracks. Oh. No, I don't mind the floor. I meant we'd be sharing the bed. Hearing it out loud just made me want to slap myself across the face. Michael blinked at me before laughing lightly. My bed's too small for two people, don't you think? I don't think it'd be comfortable for either of us. He eyed the bed frame before looking back at me. I'll be all right. With that, he crouched on the floor and started setting up his bed, his tail swaying languidly. I lay down and faced the wall, the sharp sting of embarrassment in my chest refusing to go away. Why did I ask that? That was so stupid. Maybe I needed a sense of comfort. Or maybe I just needed him. Whichever it was, at least he took it at face value. I wasn't sure what I'd do if he had said yes. I groaned internally and shut my eyes, willing myself to go to sleep. All right, half expecting him to be right in my face as I'm sleeping. The last thing I heard was the gentle crackling of the fireplace, accompanied by Michael's knitting needles clinking away in the dark. Before I knew it, I could hear birds chirping outside the window. The first thing I noticed was the fire must have been out, considering I couldn't hear the familiar pop and snap that came with the room's ambience. The second thing I realized was the hand gently shaking my shoulder awake. Wake up, sleepyhead. I stirred, yawning as I sat up in bed. Michael beamed, hands still on my shoulder. There you are. Had a good sleep? I mumbled incoherently. His smile widened into a grin as I blinked myself out of my woozy state. If I didn't know any better, he seemed to enjoy waking me up in the morning just to see my disgruntled expressions. Breakfast is ready. Wash up and meet me in the kitchen, all right? Give me a second. He took that as my assent, humming his response. Suddenly, his hand reached up to ruffle my hair, messing up my bedhead further. Hey! He merely laughed at my indignant squawk before reminding me once more to get up, his steps already thudding towards the kitchen. Michael. What are you plotting, Michael? Recovering after a moment, I stared at the wall and pondered my situation for a second as I made my way to the bathroom. This was the third day since I've left my house. I'm missing work, missing my cat, and missing my sense of direction. I gotta get back to my life. Today. Quietly reminding myself of my goal, I padded to the bathroom, freshened up, and joined him in the kitchen. What are we going to eat now that's going to make me incredibly hungry? Michael was already seated, cutting into some pancakes. His smile was bright as I entered the kitchen, his tail flicking closer to my seat as I sat down. Ooh. A similar stack of mouth-watering pancakes was placed across him, waiting for me to dig in, though I couldn't bring myself to muster up an appetite with so many thoughts filling up my head. Well, if you're not going to eat it, I'm going to scarf it down. He seemed to notice the look on my face, laughing nervously. You look serious. Something on your mind, Firefly? I picked up my fork, twiddling with it. I'm just worried about getting home. Michael faltered as he lifted a piece to his mouth. Oh, you're still thinking about that? He seemed annoyed, which was a first. Of course. I've been gone for 3 days. People probably think I've gone missing. His gaze lowered, almost grumbling. Is that so bad? What? Yeah, it's bad. Why do you sound like you don't even care? Uh-oh. Michael frowned, looking up at me now. Why do you sound like you're desperate to leave? What? It's all you ever think about. Are you not happy here? Is it not enough? I sighed, rubbing my fingers over my eyes. Michael, I just woke up. I literally just woke up. Michael, we've gone over this. I've said it once and I'll say it again. You've done so much for me already. But I can't keep pretending everything's okay here. I want to go home. I need to go home. He sucked in a deep breath, grunting something indecipherable under his breath. I only wanted to... He seemed to be battling himself before he finally sighed. I'm sorry. You're right. Of course you're right. His tone seemed genuine, even if the hurt in his eyes was clear as day. Listen, bud. I can visit you. You can visit me. I'll set up the computer. We can play Pal World. I'll send you back today. I narrowed my eyes. I mean it this time. I promise. He held his hand over his chest. I swear on my heart. Oh, all right. I trust you. Just know, I'm going to go back and I'm going to see what happens if I don't trust you. I mean, how could I not trust him? He was my last hope. Okay. I paused for a moment before adding quickly. Thank you. He nodded and went back to eating, watching me expectantly as he took a timid bite. It was a moment before he swallowed and spoke again. Can you promise me something? His voice was quiet, and for a lack of a better word, vulnerable. What is it? Promise me. His mouth hung open for a second or two before he laughed. Promise you weren't lying when you said you liked my cooking? I snorted. Are you kidding? Do I look like the kind of person to lie? I'm offended, Michael. He laughed again, light and airy. But if I dared to look closer, I could tell it was fake. He probably didn't want to make our last moments tense and awkward. The least I could do was meet him halfway. Before long, we found ourselves walking down another path from Michael's. The route was different today, probably because he didn't have any detours in mind. We walked in silence for a while. The only thing accompanying us were the sounds of nature and our footsteps. I couldn't tell what Michael was thinking. I knew he wasn't the talkative type unless spoken to, but right now he seemed eerily quiet. His back was tense, eyes looking nowhere but forward. My voice was itching to say something. Anything. But it felt like the both of us had some thoughts to digest, despite it being easier to just say it out loud. Still, the silence was getting unbearable. So, We both halted in our steps at the sound of rustling, Michael's ear perking in a direction. Michael, did you bring your crossbow? What was that? Oh, okay, good. His hands were already rising to hold his crossbow, deftly cocking it with an experienced pull of the string until a solid click was heard. Stay quiet. Stay close. I swallowed, my heart picking up speed. He started stalking low towards the source of the noise, his boots barely making a sound compared to my clumsy footsteps. The rustling continued, sounding like a scuffle was occurring between the bushes. Closer, closer, until my ears picked up an unfamiliar high-pitched sound. It sounded like a tiny infant screaming. As morbid as that was, Michael actually relaxed as he recognized it. His steps hastened silently towards the source, crossbow lowering, until we came across what exactly it was that caused the disturbance. Oh, a wabbit. Its small, delicate foot snagged in an old rusted trap. Its little body trembled as it breathed fast and shallow, no doubt scared out of its mind. You're either going to be released or become dinner. Michael regarded it empathetically before unloading his crossbow, disturbed by the caught rabbit, but at the same time relieved at the absence of a threat. Just a rabbit. Sweeping his crossbow behind his back and out of sight, he looked at it for another moment before looking up towards me. Let's keep going then. My mouth dropped in shock. And leave that poor thing behind? He raised a brow, confused at my bewilderment. Yes? But it's going to die. His face twisted in confusion. He probably set the trap, because, that's what you gotta do when you live in the forest. That's generally what happens to prey animals, yes? He was so nonchalant about it, I had to keep my emotions in check. We can't do that. Look at it. His expression was understanding, if a little annoyed. I am. Someone left a trap. A rabbit gets caught in it. That's how it works. What do you want me to do? Set it free? Obviously? He was frowning now. I can't. If someone is nearby, they'll be suspicious how their catch got free. Does that matter? Animals escape traps all the time. The poor thing is suffering. Espoir, I know you're smarter than this. If it doesn't die today, it'll die tomorrow. To a trap, to a fox, to a hunter. It probably won't even survive long with its injured foot if we set it free. That is a good point. You're prolonging the inevitable. Can't you put it out of its misery then? He hesitated. Do you really want me to do that? No. But even then, we don't even know if anyone's coming back for it. The thing looks so old. He sighed impatiently, looking stubborn in his decision. That's the point of a trap. It's to keep things right where they are until you come back. The way he said it just rubbed me the wrong way. It did. He's being realistic. He is being realistic. In a way, his logic made sense, but still, I could hardly believe how needlessly callous he was being. For someone so sweet with his hands, he was so indifferent about the poor rabbit shaking at our feet. I looked down at it once more, my heart breaking as it started to squeak. Actually, we'd better get out of here because that thing's going to attract more predators. Michael. No, I'm staying with Michael on this one. This is the law of the jungle. I guess you're right. Okay, follow me. Who was I to say what was right and wrong? Maybe he had a point. It was just one small rabbit in the grand scheme of things. We should just let it be. Michael led us back to where we came, the struggling, squeaking noises of the rabbit eventually drowned out by the sounds of the forest around us. Left alone to its fate. Don't make me feel guilty. That's somebody's dinner, and it could be Michael's. Guilt spread through my chest like an icky mold, but I quickly stifled it. It's just nature. Let it be. Let it be. Michael took the lead, his footing sure and confident. He must have noticed my unsteady gait beside him, as he suddenly veered towards a clear path I could easily follow. I didn't verbalize it, but I was definitely grateful for that. As much as the forest was growing on me, getting my feet caught in roots and twigs every few steps was tiring after a while. Our steps fell into rhythm next to each other. I peeked at Michael every once in a while, trying to gauge his mood after what happened. Even after spending so much time with him, he was so difficult to read. How can someone both wear their heart on their sleeve, yet keep it stitched tight, never letting anyone come too close? I knew he had secrets he wanted to keep close to his chest. Oh yeah, like that box. But I wished he'd just open up to me a little. The silence that hung in the air was making my skin prickle. What's your favorite animal? I was so caught up in my thoughts, I didn't even realize I blurted the first thing that came to mind. Michael regarded me curiously, ear flicking. My favorite animal? He pursed his lips in thought before his ears perked. Jellyfish. I did a double take. It was one thing for him to have to answer so readily, but the choice was something else. A jelly? Why jellyfish? I thought it'd be, I don't know, a bird or something. He shrugged. They're pretty to look at least from pictures I've seen. Plus, I kinda relate to them. He said that without zero hesitation. How exactly do you relate to a jellyfish? His expression faltered, as if deciding on the right way he could explain his answer. Let's just say I have something in common. You're immortal? You've got no spine? Well, you clearly have spine. With a jellyfish. Well, one jellyfish. In what way? That they're pretty to look at? A strangled noise slipped past his throat. No. You wouldn't get it. Try me. No. I groaned like a dying whale in exasperation, shoulders slumped like I had a back problem. He's not going to elaborate anymore, is he? He probably spotted the vein growing on my forehead as he snickered. Relax, Firefly. You're gonna faint on the spot if you think any harder. Yeah, well, it'd be your fault. His smile dropped for a second before his cheeky grin returned. Touch. Touch? Touch what? You know, touch. I stared at him, his happy grin shifting into a confused frown. You know, touch. When, it's like saying you're right. Oh. You mean touche? Yeah, I guess you could mistake that. He smiled innocently. Yeah. This man will be the death of me. He laughed at my screwed-up grimace, waving a hand hastily. What about you? What's your favorite animal? Well, it's really a toss-up between cats, foxes, pigs, sheeps, goats, and crocodiles. Cats or your chickens? I like cats. If I had to choose between chickens and cats, I like cats. He snorted, a fond smile on his lips. You know what? I don't even know why I bothered asking. Of course it's cats. What's that supposed to mean? He gave me a look. You know what I mean. Yeah, I know what you mean. He pretty much giggled in response. We continued with idle chatter after that. I didn't even know how much time had passed as the trees slowly thinned out, the sounds of nature muffling as the canopy started to grow scarce. Suddenly, I heard the soft yet familiar rumble of a car in the distance. I almost didn't pick up on it, fully immersed in whatever Michael was rambling about. Something about the life cycle of a topsy-turvy door, knee, or whatever it was he called it. Oh! Had we really walked that far already? I left Michael's side and rushed forward. He made a sound of surprise, but followed suit. I neared the edge of the forest, just as another car drove past. I recognized my street instantly. Breaking into a light jog, I almost missed Michael calling for my name as I ran down the road. There! My house was visible from where I stood by the street. I was breathing heavily by the time Michael approached my side, the man barely making a sound as I took in the sight. Oh, I miss this. Oh, symmetry! I turned to thank Michael, only to startle when a bundled stranger took his place. Ah! Sorry. People about. I couldn't see anyone around, but I guess he was right to be safe. I guess this was his version of a disguise. If I were to pass him on the street, I don't think I would have bothered to look twice. I mean, I'd want to say thank you to your face, but I'll settle for this, I guess. His chuckle was muffled underneath the scarf. He pulled it down so he could speak properly. Did I scare you? I got distracted. Michael's eyes squinted from where I could see them. And I wonder how you don't get lost every 20 steps. Hey! I kinda do. He laughed at my offended tone. You better not go back in there. Got it? I'm not always gonna be around to find you. Who says I need you around to find me? Almost instantly, his eyes hardened under his sunglasses. I'm serious. Don't go wandering in these woods again. Or I might have to start taking drastic measures just to make sure you stay put right where you are. I sputtered indignantly. I'll wander where I please. Sure. He looked over my shoulder, towards my house. So that's where you live, huh? Looks cozy. Come in! Come in! Let me show you my PlayStation 1 games! I wasn't sure if he was being genuine, considering he lived in the wooden back ends of the middle of nowhere. Suddenly, I perked up with a thought. Do you want to come by? His eyes darted towards me, shock evident on his face. Me? To your home? Yes! I nodded. He froze completely. For a second, I thought he stopped breathing. I'd love to... Ah! Aww. Sudden barking and a shout startled us both, my body jerking forward as his arm yanked me close. I heard a soft rustle as his sunglasses fell to the grass from the sudden motion, his hastily worn beanie shaken off his head. Looking up, it was just my neighbor calling out to their dog. Oh, looks like Vita's back from college. I paused, feeling his grip tighten. I looked down at his hand on my shoulder before glancing up at him. Michael? He snapped back to the present, his hand releasing me quickly. Sorry. He looked towards my neighbor and their dog for another moment before turning back to me. I don't think it's a good idea for me to go with you. I don't want to be seen. I deflated just a little. But you have your disguise, don't you? He shook his head insistently. I can't risk it. It's better this way. No! He spoke with a finality that was starting to become familiar. If he wasn't willing, fine. At least I was. Before he could pick up his accessories, I gently grabbed his wrist. Then Can I come visit you instead? What? I huffed impatiently. If you won't come to mine, then I'll go to yours. Once again, he was rendered speechless. Why would you ever want to see me again? Because you're cute, and you cook good, and you're a sweet baby, and, there's those times of manipulation and yanderiness, but still. At this point, I was starting to look and sound peeved. For all his good traits, the constant need to build his walls higher around me was starting to get annoying. I folded my arms, looking stern. Listen here, you sweet basket of apples. His eyes widened as if in preparation, ears flattening like a cat in the middle of a scolding. Michael, can you just accept the fact that maybe I enjoy your company and wouldn't mind more? I'm sorry. Nobody's ever... But you wanted to go home so badly. Oh, this man is hopeless. Yes, of course I do. But that doesn't mean I'm gonna forget about you completely. Besides, I promised I'd show you what phones can do, didn't I? Dismissing the fact that there's probably not much I can show when there's no data in the woods. I'm sure he'd be enthralled by whatever dinky mobile game I had installed at the time. The point was, I just wanted to see him again. So, that means I get to see you again? I picked up on the eager tone in his voice, realizing he wished for the same sentiment. Yeah, I want to. His voice warbled for a second. Firefly. He cleared his throat, laughing to himself. Espoir. You can't imagine how much that means to me. A lot. It means a lot. More than you know. I nodded, a giddy smile creeping onto my own face. How's next weekend? He tilted his head. That's 7 sundowns from now? 5. His smile widened, ears squinting in absolute delight. Okay, I'll meet you here then. I smiled at him, figuring this was goodbye. Hug him or thank him? Bring it in, buddy. Bring it in. I didn't think twice, arms spread and wrapped around him before he could react. Michael froze from head to toe, inhaling sharply as his shoulders tensed. For a second, I thought I triggered a fight or flight or freeze response. It took a few seconds before he shifted to reciprocate, lightly placing his hands on the small of my back in a loose hold, fingertips splayed awkwardly along my spine. He seemed to gain confidence as he wrapped his arms around me properly, a shaky sigh leaving his body as he relaxed. A faint rhythmic rumble emitted from his chest. My eyes widened at the strange feeling. Was he purring? I knew I'd heard that sound before, but he was definitely purring. Oh. I didn't have time to dwell on it for long. His grip was getting tighter. Michael? Tighter. Michael! Tighter. Michael, no! What? When another car passing by made him jump and release me. Michael! Come on now. I had to step away to catch my breath after the squeeze. His arms dropped to his side with a blank stare in my direction. Oh. Out of the corner of my eye, I could see his hands clenching tightly as if holding himself back. I looked up at him, expecting him to say something first. Instead, he just stared at me like I'd grown. Instead, he just stared at me like I grew a third eye. I quickly cleared my throat, cheeks starting to burn. Anyways... I gave him one last light punch to the shoulder. It felt like punching a sack of grains. I'll see you next weekend. Ignoring the heat on my face, I looked both ways before jogging across the street. My neighbor in their yard looked up as I approached, their eyes lighting up in recognition. Espoir? Their hands fidgeted with the frisbee in their hand as they approached, their ever-loyal Leica following close behind. Aww. I was wondering where you've been. I dropped by to give you some cake over the weekend, but you weren't home. And you didn't answer your phone, and your packages were piling up at the door, and... I held my hands up in a placating gesture. Vita, I'm fine. I've just been lost in the forest for 3 days. Aw. At our feet, Leica was dutifully pawing at their elbow to calm them down. Aw. Their mouths stopped midway through another sentence, blinking rapidly. Ah! Sorry. They reached down to pat Leica's head, significantly calmer as they asked me again. Where were you? Where have you been? I was, visiting a friend. For a digital detox? Off the grid and all that. They blinked slowly, nodding. Oh, that sounds exciting. By the tone of their voice, they didn't mean that at all. Oh, what about Daisy? Did you manage to find her? My mood instantly dropped. No. It's why I went away in the first place, you could say. It took a few seconds for Vita to understand what I meant. Oh. I'm sorry. It's fine. They straightened, a flash of empathy on their face before they smiled. Well, Leica and I are around for the semester break if you need anything. We should do a movie night. Maybe that'll lift your spirits. I found this really good one I think you'd like. I did some research and I feel like it's right up your alley. Leica and I could take a quick drive to the store, so just let us know when you're up for it. I could get your favorite snacks and stuff. Aww. Leica gave a happy bark at the familiar word. A fond smile quirked at my lips. Thank you, Vita. I'll bring the orange soda. Their expression lit up happily. Who loves orange soda?
Who loves orange soda? I do. Ooh.
Take care. I bid them both goodbye to walk up my driveway. Once I got to my door, I had an urge to turn around one last time. I was surprised to see Michael still standing by the forest's edge. Oh, there he is. Shadowed by the trees, our eyes made contact, his own, a fierce, piercing yellow shining against the shade. I gave him a big wave. It took a moment, but he waved back. Smiling to myself, I unlocked the front door and let myself inside. It was surreal standing in my doorway again. I felt like Alice, who had just woke up at the end of the book, feeling like I'd dreamt of Wonderland. I tossed my keys in my backpack by the hall carelessly before plugging my phone into the charger. I dreaded playing catch-up with the people who might have tried to reach me during my absence. Oh yeah, work, family, friends. I groaned aloud, flopping into the living room couch. Ah well, at least I had this weekend to look forward to. Oh. And that's all from day 3 of Mushroom Oasis. More updates coming in the future. How wonderful! Thank you for playing. Absolutely. What if I'm a little bit meaner? What if I say, I should be careful around Michael? I just couldn't shake the feeling that Michael was hiding something. He'd been a gracious host so far, but that didn't make him the most trustworthy either. There's definitely something I'm missing. My mind was wandering, even as I undressed and stepped under the shower. The icy chill of the water did nothing to distract me from my nerves. If anything, it elevated it. I was a shivering mess by the time I was done cleaning myself with whatever soap he had lying around. Once I dried myself, I inspected his clothes inside and out to see if there's anything off with them. They smelled like wet grass and burnt wood. Considering his lifestyle, it made sense for his clothes to have that sort of scent stuck to them, I suppose. Putting them on, it reminded me of how big and tall Michael was, compared to me at least. I fidgeted and fiddled with the sleeves and waistband until I could somewhat move comfortably. There's no mirror in his bathroom, so I had to assume I looked like a walking potato sack. Better than nothing. Gathering my courage, I shook out my hands and straightened myself before exiting towards the kitchen. A savory scent filled my nose. Michael did mention dinner was almost done. As I entered, I saw Michael by the stove, idly stirring something crimson in a pot and humming quietly to himself. His content smile widened as he saw me, his ears flicking. I tried not to look uneasy as he looked me up and down. How do they fit? They're all right. Much too big for me. He nodded, turning back to the pot. I can see that. Right. His smile faltered as he picked up on the wariness in my tone. Is everything all right? His eyes held a sense of worry, his shoulders tensing. I can get you something else to wear, if you'd like. There's no need. He paused, hand gripping onto the ladle tightly as he continued to hesitate. I hope this doesn't end with me stabbing it with a sewing needle again. There's another pause before his brows furrowed. I'm not an idiot. You don't trust me, do you? I flinched. Michael looked hurt as he sighed. So I'm right. His ears flicked by the sides of his head as he turned back towards the stove. Can I just know why? His eyes were sad as he stared at the pot, as if he'd been in this situation before. I thought I did everything right. Truthfully, I didn't expect such a direct confrontation. There's a lump in my throat as my fists clench at my sides. It's just... The kettle started whistling, but he was clearly ignoring it. I swallowed down my growing anxiety and decided to be upfront. I just didn't expect to be here again. It felt like the wrong thing to say when Michael's frown deepened. So, you never wanted to be here? I didn't mean it like that. Then how else could you possibly mean it? Another deep sigh slipped out of him as he reached to lift the kettle off the stove, mumbling to himself. I was hoping you'd be different. What was I thinking? What did you say? Nothing. Michael, His forlorn expression made my words feel thick on my tongue, forcing me to reluctantly swallow them back down. Any trace of suspicion I had faded and was replaced by a feeling of guilt. I'm sorry. I just thought I'd be home by now. I know. Uh-oh. I'm sorry too. He lifted his gaze towards me, eyes full of regret. But is it really so bad, Espoir? I know being lost in the woods with a man you don't know can be... Oh, was he gonna call himself a monster? Scary. But I promise you, you're safe. The last thing I'd ever want you to be is scared. He trailed off. So just trust me, okay? Can you do that? Please? I swallowed and gave him a nod. My gut still rolled with suspicion, every fiber of my being wary of him to a certain extent. He seemed satisfied, though, eager to move on past the tension. Until I make the choice not to trust him again. Thank you. His mouth quivered at the edges, all four of his eyes squinting with the slightest bit of hope. Please, let it be different for once. Now that food was no longer a distraction, I felt uneasy again, glancing around the room and staring at the window. Michael was eyeing me as he grabbed the stool and dragged it to the center of the room. "Is there something outside?" His question sounded innocent, but it had a sense of wariness to it. I shook my head quickly. Nothing. I was just..." Something catches my eye from under the bed, glinting like a knife. Tilting my head lower, I could see it was a tin container the size of a shoebox. "What's that?" Michael looked up. Under your bed." A panicked look came across his face. That thing? Just some emergency supplies. Yeah, nothing too special." I had an inkling he was being dishonest again, but I figured I'd leave it for another day. "I see." What's in the box, Michael?" He went to collect his blankets again, already arranging them into a nest like the night before. The words left my mouth before I could think twice. "I can trust you, right?" A flicker of surprise crossed Michael's face. "Of course you can trust me." He didn't say anything else, as if that one line should be enough to convince me. And honestly, it was too late to start an interrogation that's only going to end up in me feeling guilty for upsetting him. I got under the covers, facing the wall with my back towards him. I could hear him setting up his nest behind me, before finally quieting down with a satisfied hum. I closed my eyes. What if I still don't trust him, going down the route of not trusting him? My eyes narrowed just a tad. Could I really trust his word? Did I have another choice? Will you tell me what happened yesterday at the river? The river? I already told you what happened at the river. His voice sounded strained at the end. So, that's it then. You're just gonna send me home? He nodded. Okay. I paused for a moment before adding quickly. Thank you. Well, I mean, he did. He did. He stayed true to his word. He did. Oh yeah, the little bunny. You're being sadistic, letting that poor prey animal that's caught in a trap be trapped like that. That's horrible. What kind of cold-hearted person says that? I could hardly believe how needlessly callous he was being. For someone so sweet with his hens, he was so indifferent about the poor rabbit shaking at our feet. My heart was torn as the rabbit helplessly kicked its feet, its cries weakening. For a moment, I imagined Daisy being caught in a trap just like this one, left to starve and die when someone could have been there to help her. No, we can't leave it like this. Please, Michael? His harsh gaze started to soften at my plea. Does it matter that much to you, Firefly? I nodded quickly, without hesitation. Please? It'll be the last time I'll ever ask for anything. He paused for another moment, before shaking his head with a defeated sigh. Somehow I doubt it's the last time. There was a smile in his voice, though. But, all right, I'll do it for you. Stand back. I have to pry it open. My gratitude was clear on my face as he pulled out a deadly-looking hunting knife from his pocket, kneeling down next to the rabbit. The terrified creature started to writhe all over again at the sign of a looming threat. Michael grunted as he held it down firmly with one hand. It started to fall still under his hold, relaxing completely with its foot hanging limp. Huh. He sure had a way with animals. I backed away to give him space, not wanting to distract him. As he was working to free the rabbit, I looked around to take in my surroundings. The trees felt somewhat familiar, a flash of a memory playing in my mind. Uh-oh. Casting one last glance towards Michael's back, I wandered a bit further away, making sure to stay within earshot. It took a few steps before I came across a familiar sight. Oh no. Oh no, no, no. Oh no, 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 no. Oh, it was the circle of mushrooms from the other day. I recalled that Daisy was definitely here. I hesitated at the edge of it, a sourceless sense of fear suddenly coursing through me as I stared at it. Had it grown bigger? Ooh. Oh no! Oh no, not the purple letters again! The longer I stood there, the more the fear dissipated, my limbs tingling pleasantly and urging me forward. Before I realized it, my foot was already lifting to approach it. Michael! Michael, help! Closer. Closer. Staring at it, a fuzzy haze creeped over my mind. My face was warm. I found myself smiling at the oddly comforting familiarity. Like recalling a fond memory, like greeting an old friend. I knelt down to inspect the growth, reaching out to brush my hand on one of the mushroom caps. Whew! Thank goodness! When someone yanked my wrist back. What? Don't! Huh? Don't touch those. I looked up to see Michael looming over me, gaze sharp and irises shaped like thin slivers. Aww. You have a terrible habit of wandering off, don't you? I gulped. I just... How is the rabbit? Is it safe? His eyes narrowed as I flailed to change the subject. It's free, like you asked. Don't touch those. Michael squeezed my wrist before letting go. I rubbed my wrist. It didn't hurt, but his grip had intent. Why? What's wrong with them? Nothing. Mike, listen. Just tell them about the stinking mushrooms. It won't do anything to you to tell them the truth about the stinking mushrooms. Maybe I wouldn't wander into fairy circles if you would stop trying to hide stuff from me. Just don't touch them. I just thought it looked pretty, that's all. Did you, though? I shook my head, feeling disoriented as my mind flickered between thoughts rapidly like a broken radio station. Mushrooms controlling my mind, you're controlling my mind. I got purple letters, I got pink letters. Michael snapped his fingers for my attention. Look at me, Firefly. His voice was snippy and irritated. I blinked rapidly to ground myself, scratching my head as I tried to gather my thoughts. Talk to me. Say anything. Some people think they're magic. Yeah, that's a pretty common belief with mushroom rings, isn't it? I hung on to that thought. Keep going. Like, related to fae folk, you know? It's why they're called fairy rings, or a fairy circle. Michael squinted before easing, his demeanor just a little less tense compared to before. They do look like they could summon a portal at any moment and whisk you away. I looked over at Michael, expecting him to look amused. Instead, he was glaring down at the ground, as if the mushrooms were the most vile thing he'd ever seen. No, it's more of an invasive species than anything else. I followed his gaze towards the harmless circle of fungus. They are? Should we do something about it? He blinked as if coming out of a daze. No. Sorry, just a thought that slipped out. He pinched his nose bridge, his normally soft voice a tired grumble. Normally I'd leave them alone to do their business, but having you here... Anyways, just don't touch it, okay? He was being far too uptight about something as trivial as a circle of mushrooms. Do you know what happened to my kitty? It feels like there's more to it than that. His sigh was exasperated. They just grew in my part of the forest, is all. They make me uncomfortable. It definitely felt like Michael wanted to use a stronger word than uncomfortable, a barely concealed growl between his teeth. Why? I thought you liked mushrooms. Michael's ears flattened. Not these ones. They're not even real mushrooms. Really? They're not? No. He seemed to hesitate before blurting. They just happen to mimic mushrooms. Oh. I've never heard of something like that. Though there are some pretty wild foliage out there that could copy the look of nearby plants. I mean, mushrooms and fungi are so crazy, they probably could do all that. Does it have a name? His brows scrunched in confusion. What, them? Yeah. You know, as in the species? Oh, I'm not entirely sure. I can recognize them by sight, though, so just stick with me when we're out in the woods, okay? I really don't want you anywhere near them. All right, if you say so. I just don't get how they can be invasive is all. I consider it invasive when they come on my property. Is he really getting this angry over cute mushrooms? I'm gonna be honest. You're acting really weird about it, Michael. Almost as if you told the truth, we'd probably be fully understanding. He was getting more agitated the longer we stood there, hands clenching into tight fists. Espoir, I know I ask a lot from you, but please, just leave them alone, okay? Why? There's something you're not... Okay. Look, can we just... I flinched, backing away from him as his voice rang through the trees. A silence passed between us before he took a deep breath. I'm sorry. Please, can we just step away from here? He held out his hand. His fingers were trembling. Well, this is the route where I'm kind of being antagonistic, so let's call him out. No. Enough is enough. You keep dodging my questions. You keep deciding things on your own. You won't even tell me what the heck is wrong with these stupid mushrooms. Are you ever gonna tell me the truth, or am I stuck in this loop of doubting every single word you say? His hand dropped like an anchor. You don't trust me? How can I? What happened yesterday, Michael? I stared up at him, my glare sending him into a panic. Do you really want to know? My eyes narrowed. Look, I've already chosen that I don't trust you like 3 times. He flinched. I made you sick. Sick? He swallowed, taking a deep breath. I'm able to suggest things, make people listen. I can make you forget fear, mess with the thoughts inside your head. What are you talking about? Espoir. I hope you don't hate me for this. I cried out as pressure started pushing against my eyes. A painful, aching pressure filled my head, my hands flying to clutch at my ears. What? My head felt tight and full to bursting, crushed under a weight I couldn't comprehend. It was like I'd painfully grown a second skull, and none of my thoughts fit in my own brain, pushing outwards. Relax. It won't hurt if you relax. Michael! I inhaled sharply, feeling the unbearable droning headache growing into a painful spike. Were my ears bleeding, or am I imagining it? Usually I have to be subtle, otherwise your psyche will try to fight back, like it is right now. Stop it! The feeling faded instantly. It was only then I realized I was crying, my cheeks wet with tears and nose stuffed with snot. Why did you do that? I was trying to help you understand. By trying to kill me? No, that wouldn't have killed you. I made sure of it. Made sure of it? What does that even mean? I didn't know what to do. That was all I've ever known. You tricked me. You hurt me. And you dare ask me to trust you? I'd never hurt you like that. Ever. I can promise you weren't hurt. It was all in your head. I balked at the audacity. And you think that makes it okay? He froze, expression growing pained. No, it doesn't. I only have mean choices. I mean, this is the playthrough where I'm being mean. You're a monster, even though I don't mean that at all. His eyes widened with hurt. No, Espoir, don't say that. Not after everything you've said. I was an idiot. You don't mean that. You don't mean that. No, please. Don't look at me like that. You're gonna do the pink on me until I die, aren't you? You're different. I know you are. We can start over, I promise. Friends? Are you serious? Forget it. Friends don't hurt each other playing twisted mind games. No, please. Please forgive me. Please let me have this. Please forgive me. His breathing grew erratic, gasping for air. Please. I can't lose you like this. I can't. I take a step back from him, the movement causing his entire body to tense up. He suddenly lunged for me, grabbing my shoulders tight. Aww. Somehow I was ready for it, shoving him back and slapping him across the face. He stood there in shock, tears spilling over his cheeks from the force. You really do hate me? Oh, that hurts so much, Espoir. I'm sorry. Everything goes dark. Why? Espoir? Snoodle. I shot into a sitting position, a wet lick trailing up my cheek as the golden retriever barked. Laika, down! Laika? I recognized that voice. A tall figure loomed into view, their long hair tied back into a messy ponytail. My eyes widened as I recognized a familiar face. Vita? You're back. My neighbor gave me a timid smile, fidgeting with the frisbee in their hands. Oh, for my semester break, yeah. Where have you been, Espoir? I came by during the weekend, but you weren't home, and you weren't answering your phone either. We were on our way to the park when we found you. I glanced around, realizing I was sitting by the sidewalk. Oh, did he knock me out and carry me? A few feet away was the edge of the woods, right beside our neighborhood. Vita reached down and started picking twigs and leaves out of my hair, completely unprompted. Did you go camping? I don't remember. I stood on my feet, brushing off my clothes and fixing the bag over my shoulder. Oh, that's worrying. Are you sure you're all right? I think so. A shudder ran through me, my head glancing towards the trees. I saw a flash of yellow disappear into the bushes. Maybe a bird? A butterfly, perhaps? Laika must have seen it too, as the dog started barking. Whatever it was already out of sight. Oh, I think I need to go home. Vita was about to say more before I sidestepped them, leaving them confused as I hastily made my way to my street. Reaching my home, I threw the door open and stumbled inside. All of my senses felt out of tune, like my brain was still catching up with my body. My bag dropped with a muffled thud to the ground, its contents a mystery as I wandered to the kitchen for a drink. Why did everything feel so fuzzy? It feels like I was trimmed out of a stray photograph and pasted into the scrapbook of a page where the memory didn't belong. Why? 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 Pourquoi? Why did everything feel so wrong? I downed my drink. And another. My tongue was numb. It didn't feel like I tasted anything, or if my thirst was real at all. Maybe I needed a nap. I was about to shuffle off to my bedroom when there was a knock at my door. Confused, I hurried to open it, expecting Vita back from their walk. Nobody. My whole body jerking to sit up. Michael glanced at me, kalimba in his lap and half a forget-me-not chain in his hands. Oh, they're forget-me-nots? Oh. Glancing down at my feet, there was a circle of blue flowers placed next to a strange wooden box. It looked like an instrument. Did someone mistake my house for another? Picking up the items, my hands brush over the wood and thumb the delicate petals. What a strange thing to leave at someone's doorstep. Even if it was a prank, why leave these items specifically? I looked out towards the forest, a pang of something nostalgic striking hard in my chest. I've never set foot in those woods, never had a reason to, and yet I couldn't help feeling like I've lost something. Something important. But if it was important, surely I'd remember it. Ending 4. Forget-me-not. Alright, I called him out and I declined. What if I take his hand? I closed my hand around his, noting the way his tail flicked so hard it thumped against his leg. His fingers were calloused against my own, twitching at the unfamiliar sensation. I stepped up beside him, looking at him expectantly. I didn't think you'd take it. Now it was my turn to get flustered. You offered. I know I did. I thought I scared you, so I figured. We waited for the other to say something, our faces growing heated as seconds passed. He finally laughed, exclaiming something strange and garbled before squeezing my hand. Espoir, you're really something special. I hope you realize that. He gave my hand another tight squeeze, snapping me out of my daydream. Let's get you home, Firefly. Aww. Maybe to lighten the mood a little bit, what if I say, I like your chickens? He looked taken aback, clearly not expecting that answer. Really? Yeah. Who wouldn't fall in love with the little darlings? He seemed pleased with that answer, his already wide smile softening further. You're right. Who wouldn't fall in love with a little darling? Maybe instead of hugging him and nearly dying and being hit by a car, what if I just say thank you? You're welcome, Firefly. His voice was filled with a warm, soft reverence. I didn't think much of it before, but now I was really curious. Why do you call me that? Huh? Firefly, you've been calling me that since we met. Why? Oh, He fidgeted with the strap of his satchel, as if embarrassed. I guess you just Reminded me of one. I snorted, folding my arms in mock offense. You're comparing me to a fly now? Beetle, actually. Still a bug. He sighed, rolling his eyes. I'm not done. Right. Sorry. Go on. He rubbed the tips of his fingers on the strap again, slowly speaking. When I first found you, I thought our time together would be short. Something that might fade as quickly as it appeared. And if I wasn't careful, you could slip away so easily. Fireflies are so delicate after all. But then, you stayed. And not just stayed, you lit up everything around me. Something I didn't even realize I needed. Your light was warm, soft, mesmerizing. Safe. I wish I could keep you in my hands forever. But you wouldn't like that, would you? He stared at me with such intensity, I really did start to feel like a bug under a microscope. My face grew warm, a shudder running up my spine. Wow, huh? Cool story. Anyways, I gave him one last light punch on the shoulder. It felt like punching a sack of grains. I'll see you next weekend. I groaned aloud, flopping onto the living room couch. Oh well. At least I had this weekend to look forward to. Oh, that was so sweet. Oh gosh dang it, that was so sweet. Michael. For a while I thought this was going to be the end. I don't remember how many days there's supposed to be, but it seems like there's more to Michael than we've seen so far. What's in the box? What's going on with those mushrooms? Why won't he tell us? How are they an invasive species? Oh yeah, and I guess the biggest question, what exactly is Michael? Or maybe an even bigger question, have I been pronouncing his name correctly this entire time? But what do you think? Is Michael the cutest boy in the world, and why is the answer yes? If you enjoyed this video and my various shenanigans, feel free to like, subscribe, or interact in any way that is comfortable for you. As always, there will be a link in the description of this video where you can follow this developer for any more development, as well as a few links of my own to my Patreons and my Twitter and a whole bunch of other stuff. But anyway, thank you so much for hanging out with me. Take care of yourself, have a great night, and remember, there is always hope.